Prior to the Muslims, parts of Arabia were once ruled by a significant power known as the Jewish Kingdom of Himyar. According to the Institute of Advanced Studies, few scholars have been made aware of this aspect of history. The Himyarite kingdom was established around 110 BC in the area of southwest Arabia, where Yemen is today. It initially spread its influence through trade between the Roman Empire, Africa, Arabia, and the spice trade with India, growing as a formidable fighting force along the way. The ruling kings of the Himyar Empire appear to have abandoned paganism in favor of Judaism around the year 380 AD. Over the next 150 years, the Abyssinians and Romans began military campaigns towards Yemen in an attempt to control the population and trade through the influence of Christianity. Around 518, the Jewish king Yosef Nuas became angry at the ingress of Christianity towards his own empire and sphere of influence. As a consequence, he sent an army to attack the northern city of Najran. After taking control of the city, he burned the Christian churches and put to death any Christian who would not convert to Judaism. The number of victims vary depending upon accounts, but it is believed that around 1,000 were either put to the sword or burnt to death.
We can now say that an entire nation of ethnic Arabs in southwestern Arabia had converted to Judaism and imposed it as the state religion.
Once the word of the massacre reached Byzantium and the Christian kingdom of Ethiopia, forces were amassed from both kingdoms and sent into Himyar, with the aim of putting an end to King Yosef's plans of conquest. King Negus not only wanted revenge for the slaughter of the Christians in Najran, but he also wanted back the territory which the kingdom had held during the 3rd century. From the Byzantium perspective, the Jews at that time were allies of Persia, and Persia was a rival of the Byzantine Empire. So a victory over the Jews in Himyar would also be a tactical blow to the Persians. The traditional Arab tribes living in and around Mecca and Yathrib throughout this period were caught in the middle of these great Christian Judaic clashes, probably leaving them with a disdain for both. In 525, Yosef's kingdom came to an end, when Christian forces took over his kingdom, fragmenting the Jews throughout most of Arabia. Pockets of Judaic strongholds sprang up, who, allied with the Persians, caused damage to the Christian ambitions of expansion. In 570, about the same time Muhammad was born, the Persians, allied with the Jews, took back control of Himyar by driving out the Ethiopians from the Arabian Peninsula. Furthermore, in 614, Persian forces, bolstered by Jewish tribal warriors, took over Jerusalem during the Byzantium-Sasanian War. Under this backdrop, it is clear that anyone trying to unite the people of Arabia was under a great deal of pressure from all sides. For Muhammad to achieve what he did is remarkable under the circumstances, but as his power base grew, it would come at the expense of his relations with both Christians and Jews. Once the Quran was finalized and written down, it was used to promote Muhammad's prophetic words and teachings and to successfully bring people together under one unified religion known as the Ummah. For the first 13 years of Muhammad's preaching, he only had around 150 followers, but once they took up arms to defend themselves against warring tribes, they found that they were able to repel their enemies even when outnumbered. Each successful campaign would bring forth more recruits and followers, swelling the numbers to almost 100,000 at the time of Muhammad's death in 632. Each time a warring enemy tribe was successfully defeated, the Muslims gained more credibility along with the spoils from each conflict, bringing in a great deal of wealth and prestige. Because the Muslims forbade usury, they freed themselves from the shackles of debt and were beholden to no other source for their money or wealth. Consequently, within a very short time of only 200 years, the Muslims had gone from strength to strength, becoming one of the largest and greatest empires the world had ever seen. The devil was known as Diabolos in ancient Greek, a name derived from two words, divide and abolish. Satan or Saturn is the accuser. It has divisive qualities which abolish an individual's ability to live and embrace the now by trapping their cognitive rhetoric in a deceptive spiraling cycle of negative pessimism concerning past events, loss, and frustration. The Persian word for Saturn was Satan, a planet associated with Judaic religious ideology. So what went wrong? How did Islam become so divided, a religion which almost united the whole world? When Muhammad died in June 632, divisions began almost immediately. The problem was, who would take over from Muhammad as successor? His followers were divided. Many wanted to elect a new leader on merit, while others regarded his family lineage as natural heirs. Muhammad only had one surviving daughter, Fatima, who was married to Ali ibn, a cousin of Muhammad, and for this reason many considered Ali as the logical successor. However, the father of Muhammad's third and youngest wife, Abu Bakr, also had a claim to this position, with many followers supporting him. This led to the split, which we now call Sunni and Shia. Shia Muslims regard Ali as the first and only legitimate caliph, leader of the Muslims, but the majority voted for Abu Bakr, who was eventually chosen to be the first caliph. Abu Bakr, the first caliph, began the process of compiling the material for the Quran. It was eventually written down in a standardized version under the third caliph, Uthman ibn Affan. Over the next 200 years, the Muslims spread their influence at an impressive rate. With two major caliphates, they took control over the Middle East, North Africa, and even Spain. Later, through trade routes, they became a major influence in various parts of Southeast Asia. After the second caliphate, the fifth caliph of the Abbasid Caliphate, Harun al-Rashid, initiated what many call the Golden Age of Islam. While most of Northern Europe was heading into the Dark Ages, the Muslims were entering an era of great success. In Baghdad, Rashid set up the House of Wisdom, where he brought scholars from all over the world to work on translating the best classical knowledge known at that time into Arabic. It was a time of incredible progress, where some of the world's greatest Islamic buildings were created, along with many advancements and discoveries in science and mathematics. While most of Europe was struggling to feed itself, the Islamic Spanish city of Córdoba was installing street lighting for its citizens. The city's mosque, which was built in 786, was an architectural masterpiece, with a capacity to hold 5,000 worshippers, becoming the envy of people from all over the world. In the 10th century, after hearing about the wonderful city of Córdoba, the Saxon nun and poet Roswitha wrote,
"The brilliant ornament of the world shone in the west, a noble city. Córdoba was its name, and it was wealthy and famous and known for its pleasures, and resplendent in all things."
With its military capacity, discipline, and usury-free economics, the Muslims became a threat to the very survival of the Holy Roman Empire, especially in the trading crossroads of the Middle East. Consequently, the Pope began to militarize the Catholics' position with the Order of the Knights Templar. The Crusades began in 1095 and went on for almost 200 years, steadily weakening the Muslims in the Holy Land. Also at this time, the Mongols under Genghis Khan were spreading their unique brand of fear and barbarity, sacking Baghdad in 1258, putting an end to the House of Wisdom, destroying their vast libraries along the way. They executed the Caliph along with many of his men. This is generally considered as the end of the Golden Age of Islam. Weakened by attacks from all sides, Islam, as it developed, branched off in various directions. Just as a tree grows branches which deviate from the root, some offshoots became extreme interpretations of the original foundations of Islam, far removed from the initial teachings and spirit of Muhammad. The older the tree grows, the further and more numerous the branches become. The most extreme sect of Islam began with the preacher and activist Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, commonly known as Wahhabism. He began his reform movement in Najd, central Saudi Arabia, in the middle of the 18th century. This version of Islam evolved into a far-right, ultra-conservative and fundamental offshoot of Sunni Islam. Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab eventually joined up with a local leader to create a politico-religious alliance, which later became the House of Saud. Today, Wahhabism is the official state-sponsored form of Sunni Islam in the country, gaining power and influence from the wealth generated from their natural resource of oil. It is estimated that there are around 5 million practicing Wahhabists in the Persian Gulf region alone. However, the majority of Sunni and Shia Muslims disagree with many of their interpretations concerning Islam, regularly denouncing the Wahhabists as a vile sect or even a satanic faith.
The US State Department has estimated that over the past 4 decades, concerns in Riyadh have directed at least $10 billion, £6 billion, to select charitable foundations toward the subversion of mainstream Sunni Islam by the harsh intolerance of Wahhabism. We have to frankly say that Wahhabi's superficial and false teachings and grasping onto the shell is the main obstacle standing in the way of Muslims' goal to unite and the biggest cause of the killing, dispersing and breaking up of Muslims.
In 2008, a top-secret report was released from the US Defense Intelligence Agency, a report written by an Iraqi intelligence colonel on the birth of Wahhabism. The report suggests that the British Empire during the 19th century infested the Middle East with its agents, looking for a way to undermine the Muslims in an attempt to weaken the Ottoman Empire and to lay the foundations for a Jewish state in Palestine. In 1973, the autobiography of a British Middle Eastern spy was translated. In the book, he includes British plans to dominate Muslim countries. Because Muslim men have a strict tradition of discipline and adherence to their daily practices and principles in regard to Islam, the British colonials were finding it difficult to corrupt them through simple, traditional means which had been successful throughout the world and in other cultures.
The British colonies ministry sent the trained spy Mr. Humfer to the city of Baghdad in Iraq in order to create disorder between the Sunni and Shiites and find the weak point of Muslims so he can penetrate its body to diffuse the unity of Islam. Also, his mission in this trip was to identify the conflicts among Muslims and create an atmosphere of disagreement, expiation, and mistrust among them, as well as make up different faiths and form fake colonial religions to enable the colonizer to reach its objectives in creating division.
According to Humfer, British agents were sent all over Arabia with orders to create extreme differences among the four main groups of Sunni Islam. The agents went out all over Arabia promoting fake and extreme ideologies in an attempt to divide the Muslims and get them to kill each other. This is when they came across Muhammad Abdul Wahhab.
The British found in Muhammad Abd al-Wahhab many attributes such as the love of glory, immorality, and extreme views, so they came to realize that he is the right person to establish the group they wanted. Both groups, al-Wahhabi and al-Shaykhi, are established on wrong views, therefore they brought about disorder, bloodshedding, and killing.
In 1745, Muhammad Abdul Wahhab met with Mohammed bin Saud in a meeting where they both agreed to support one another, an alliance where Muhammad Abdul Wahhab would be in control of religious matters and Mohammed bin Saud would control the government. Some Islamic scholars point out that the genuine roots of both Mohammed bin Saud and Muhammad Abdul Wahhab were of Jewish descent, with Mohammed bin Saud being a descendant of a Jewish merchant from Basra, and Muhammad Abdul Wahhab's grandfather, Tajan Shulman, was also a member of the Jewish community in Basra, Iraq. The intelligence report also claims that Shulman had been banished from Damascus, Cairo, and Mecca for his practice of quackery. In his book, The History of the Saudi Family, the author claims that in 1943 the Saudi ambassador in Cairo had paid a man by the name of Al-Tamimi 35,000 jinni to produce a fake family tree which would tie both the Saudi family and Muhammad Abdul Wahhab's family to the Prophet Muhammad.